Hello everyone, welcome to our group about couple history, exploring the key historical moments of both Korea and the world. From the must-know history of the Republic of Korea, like the story of its transformation from one of the poorest nations to an emerging industrial country in just 3 decades, to engaging stories from world history, we hope you'll join us. Thanks for your likes and subscribes, they mean so much. But the autumn of 1997 brought drastic changes. South Korea, once hailed as the miracle of Asia, faced the sudden threat of economic collapse, shocking the entire globe. How could such a rapidly growing nation require an IMF bailout? How did it tumble from soaring success to the brink of disaster? And more importantly, how did it rise from that? Let's examine one of the darkest chapters in the nation's history and tell the story of hope that blossomed in it. In the early 1990s, South Korea was at the peak of high growth, with an average annual economic growth rate of around 8%, and large companies such as Samsung, LG, Hyundai expanding overseas. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. But behind this growth was a dangerous shadow. Companies pursued unchecked expansion by borrowing enormous sums of foreign capital. This wasn't adequately regulated by the government, and external debt skyrocketed from $43 billion in 1990 to $160 billion in 1996, all within a span of 6 years. Alarmingly, much of this debt was short-term, requiring repayment within 1 year. On July 2, 1997, the situation reached a tipping point. The spark of the Asian financial crisis that started in Thailand has been sparked. As the Thai baht plummeted, the whole of Southeast Asia began to shake. Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, and the emerging countries of Asia collapsed one after another, and in October, that giant tsunami finally reached Korea. The foreign exchange holdings of Korean banks began to decline rapidly. Foreign investors began to withdraw capital from Korea. At the end of November, South Korea's foreign exchange holdings fell below $10 billion. This was not enough to cover a month's income. The Republic of Korea stood on the brink of national bankruptcy. On November 21, 1997, President Kim Young-sam had to confess the terrible reality in front of the people. Facing no other option, South Korea applied for IMF bailout. Citizens were informed by the government of their decision to request emergency financial support. Though painful for the people, it was necessary to navigate the national crisis. At $58 billion, this bailout dwarfed previous ones, though it came with restrictions. The IMF demanded reforms that reshaped the Korean economy. The IMF's restructuring program was the beginning of a huge change that shook the entire Korean society. Businesses went bankrupt. Even large conglomerates such as Daewoo Group and Hanbo Group collapsed. Factory doors closed and people who had lost their jobs poured into the streets. Unemployment is over 7%. 1.5 million people lost their jobs. When the head of a family loses his job, the whole family falls into the abyss. Families were broken up and suicide rates soared. People who have lived faithfully all their lives fell into despair overnight. The Republic of Korea was preventing the greatest realization since its founding. The streets of Seoul were quiet. Myeongdong and Gangnam, which were once full of vitality, have also become quiet. There was deep anxiety and despair on people's faces, but even in the midst of despair, a flame of hope began to blossom. On January 5, 1998, a special procession was made in the square in front of the Korea Broadcasting Corporation. It was the beginning of the gold collecting movement. Citizens began to move with the simple but powerful mind that we must step forward when the country is in trouble. The newlyweds put on their wedding rings. The movement saw an outpouring of treasures and goodwill. An elderly grandmother selflessly donated her life's gold collection, expressing her unwavering commitment to her country. Children broke their piggy banks, contributing coins, even if they couldn't fully grasp the magnitude of the adults' actions. Their heartfelt gesture showed solidarity. Fun people living in the United States also participated. People from all over New York collected gold and sent it home. He held the Taegyeok flag and shouted, "We'll love Korea." The movement spread nationally. Citizens from Busan, Daegu, Gwangju, and all over the Republic of Korea participated voluntarily. The media called it a miracle. Amazing results. In just 2 months, 3.5 million people participated, and more than 200 tons of gold were collected. That was $2.2 billion. The gold rings and necklaces offered by citizens were melted into pure gold in the smelter, and that gold was exported abroad to secure foreign exchange. That's not the problem. The country we live in cannot be destroyed. This is the country where our children will live. Although it started symbolically, the gold collecting movement signified societal readiness for authentic transformation. In February 1998, Kim Dae-jung became president, vowing to turn crisis into opportunity. He emphasized the need for profound and often heartbreaking restructuring to foster long-term recovery. Transparency in corporate operations would become a cornerstone moving forward. The circular investors of conglomerates have been sorted out, and the structure of corporate governance has changed transparently. It was painful but necessary surgery. The financial system has been completely reorganized. Failing banks were liquidated or merged. With the entry of foreign financial institutions, competition has become fierce, but the system has become sound. New opportunities have opened up. This is the venture boom. Young entrepreneurs based on the internet and technology have emerged. The crisis has become the engine of innovation. The people have also changed. As the concept of a lifelong job disappeared, I began to cultivate my own competitiveness. There was a craze for learning English, and I devoted myself to obtaining qualifications. Women's participation in society has also increased significantly. Many women entered the labor market in situations where they had to take charge of the household economy. The structure of society itself was changing. These painful changes are slowly beginning to bear fruit. Since 1999, the economic growth rate has turned positive. Exports increased and foreign exchange holdings began to increase. On August 23, 2001, the world received some shocking news. South Korea will repay $19.5 billion in IMF loans in full. It was 3 years earlier than originally planned. This is an amazing achievement for a country that only 4 years ago went to the brink of the State Department. The world economy has called it Korea's miracle. South Korea's recovery is amazing enough to rewrite economics textbooks. In particular, the people's voluntary participation and spirit of sacrifice are unique examples that are difficult to find in other countries. South Korea has returned to the world stage stronger. Companies such as Samsung, LG, and Hyundai have increased their competitiveness through restructuring and then conquered overseas markets. In the 2002 World Cup, we achieved a miracle called Sagang. We have become the world's #1 powerhouse in the provision of broadband internet. It was a complete reversal from despair to hope, from crisis to opportunity. Revisiting those involved in the goal-collecting initiative, their reflections were unanimous. Though challenging, those times invoked a sense of pride. They proved unity could achieve the impossible. The IMF crisis left lasting scars, but also etched a history of transformative solidarity. From children donating pocket money to newlyweds giving up rings, the spirit of Korea prevailed. Grandmothers relinquished gold collected over a lifetime, and such sacrifices played a pivotal role in shaping modern South Korea. Conquering the IMF crisis sent ripples of hope worldwide, a testament that unity amidst adversity breeds resilience. Together, the nation proved they could rise above challenges, stronger than ever. This enduring legacy deserves tribute. I will continue to record the path that humanity has walked, the moments of hope and courage that blossomed in it. Thank you